Okay, today we're going to go through lesson 1.1, solving equations. So our essential question today is going to be, how do you solve an equation in one variable? Anyone considering opening a business must consider how many sales it will take to earn a profit. To find the answer, you start by figuring out how to calculate profit from the number of items sold. Each item contributes to the profit, but there are also fixed costs that take away from profit no matter how many items are sold. How can you use an equation in one variable to calculate profit? So let's explore this. An equation is a mathematical sentence that uses the equal sign to show two expressions are equivalent. The expressions can be numbers, variables, constants, or combinations thereof. The solution of an equation is the value or values of any variables that can be used to make the equation a true statement. It says work backward to find the solution of the equation x minus 9 equals 5. If you get 5 after taking away 9, then x was 9 greater than 5 before taking away 9. That's working backwards. So 9 greater than 5 means 5 plus what? And that's going to be 9. So 5 plus 9 is 14. So is the value 14 the value of x before taking away 9? And the answer is yes, of course. The solution of the equation is x equals 14. The solution of the equation is a value for the variable that makes the equation true. To determine a solution, you'll use the properties of equality. So the properties of equality include the addition property of equality, which means I can add the same thing to both sides and keep the equation true. Or I can subtract the same thing to both sides and keep the equations true. Or I can multiply the same thing to both sides to keep the equations true. Or I can divide the same thing to both sides and keep the equations true. All this is saying is that I can add, subtract, multiply, divide the same thing to both sides of an equation, and the equation will still be true, which is our goal. We always have to keep our equation true. So it says solve 3x plus 5 using the properties of equality. I'm first going to get rid of the plus 5. I want you to always think of what number is by itself the most. 3 is right next to the x, but the plus 5 is kind of separated from it. So I'm going to get rid of the plus 5 by subtracting 5. But if I subtract 5 on one side of the equation, I also have to subtract 5 on the other side of the equation. So once I subtract 5 from both sides, these right here go away. I'm left with 3x plus 0, because 5 minus 5 is 0, and 11 minus 5 is 6. So if I'm left with 3x equals 6, now I've got to get rid of the multiplication of 3x. To get rid of multiply, the opposite of multiply is to divide. So I divide both sides by 3, and I end up with x equals 2. So if you want, you can pause right now, and you can reflect to yourself, what is always the goal in solving a single variable equation? I'll give you a second to think about that. I would say the goal in solving a single variable equation is to use the properties of equality to find the value of the variable or variables, we're not there yet, that make the equation true. Apparently I misspelled variables. Okay. Another way to say it is to isolate the variable. We want to get the variable by itself. Okay, it's taking a little while to save. I probably shouldn't have clicked on saving data, but that's okay. Give it a second longer here. All right, now we can move on to concept 3, solving equations to define a unit. So one useful application of algebra is to use an equation to determine what a unit of measure represents. Use the concept of working backwards and the properties of equality to define a unit. An airplane descends from 28,090 feet to 12,250 feet in altitude. A gauge at radar traffic control reads that the airplane's elevation drops 3 miles. Use the two measurements to determine how many feet there are in a mile. So we know it dropped from 28,000 to 12,250. We also know that it dropped 3 miles. So how far did it actually drop? Let's figure it out. It started at 28,000 and it dropped to 12,250 feet. Looks like it dropped a total of 15,840 feet. Let's see if I'm right. Yep. Now, it says choose the correct mathematical relationship between the height drop in feet, which was 15,840, and the number of feet per mile F. So I know there's 3 Fs, or 3 miles. So 3 miles is the same thing as 15,840 feet. I'll say it again. 3 miles, or 3 sets of feet in miles, is equal to 15,840. Now how do we solve that equation? We have multiplication of 3Fs, so we're going to divide both sides by 3. And let's see, 15,840 divided by 3 must be 5,280. Okay. Okay, so this was just a little preview of the lesson that we're going to learn over the next couple days in math class. We're going to wrap things up in a couple days with a performance set task that looks like this. And take a look at it yourself and see if you can figure out what's going on. And otherwise, thanks for watching the video.